All right, let's get right into it. In the world of sports, you have your great athletes, and then you have the ones who just seem to operate on a different level, who rewrite the rules. In tennis today, that person is, without a doubt, Carlos Alcaraz. And today, we're going to break down exactly what makes him such a champion. Everything really starts with this one number, 19. At just 19 years old, Carlos Alcaraz became the youngest men's world #1 tennis player ever. Not just in a while, the youngest in the entire Open era. That's insane. So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? How did this kid get so unbelievably good, so incredibly fast? This isn't just about raw talent. This is a rocket ship of a career. So what's the secret? To figure it out, we have to look at the one moment that proved he was the real deal. So, let's set the scene. We're going back to the summer of 2023. We're at the final of the most famous tennis tournament on earth, Wimbledon. And this was so much more than just another match. This was the ultimate test. And you just can't overstate how massive this challenge was. On one side of the net, you've got the 20-year-old challenger, Alcaraz. And on the other side, a living legend, Novak Djokovic, a guy who hadn't lost a single match on that court in a decade. It was the absolute definition of a David versus Goliath showdown. And guess what? David won. Alcaraz did what basically nobody thought was possible. He didn't just win a trophy. He snapped one of the most dominant winning streaks in the history of the sport. Which makes you ask even more urgently, how did he do it? What secrets did he have up his sleeve? Well, to understand the how, we've got to start with the what. We've got to look at the tools of his trade. And for any tennis player, the most important piece of equipment, of course, is the racket. Now, on the surface, his racket looks pretty similar to the one you could just go out and buy from a store. But here's the thing with the pros. The game is all about the little details. The real advantage is in the customizations, the stuff you can't see. And for Alcaraz, the single most important detail is this: 5 grams. That's it. His team added a tiny 5-gram weight to the throat of his racket. Now, I know what you're thinking. 5 grams? That's nothing. But trust me, in a game of millimeters and milliseconds, that's a game changer. So, what on earth does that little weight actually do? Well, it makes the racket much more stable when he hits the ball, which gives him more control over his insane power. It also adds what players call heaviness to his shots, making them just a nightmare for his opponents to return. And it gives him a little extra pop on his serve. The best part? It does all that without making the racket feel slow or clumsy. It's a perfect surgical upgrade for his aggressive game. But hey, let's be honest. A racket is just a tool. A great painter needs more than a great paintbrush. So if his gear is perfectly dialed in, what about the invisible advantage? What's going on inside his head that sets him apart? And this is where it gets really fascinating. To understand his mental game, we actually have to look at academic research that breaks down the flow of a tennis match itself. The secret, it turns out, is in mastering something we all feel but can't always define: momentum. You see, these researchers didn't treat momentum like some kind of magic hot streak. They defined it as a real, tangible, measurable force. It's the psychological upper hand in a match, and their work shows that it doesn't just happen by accident. It can be tracked, and more importantly, it can be controlled. And check this out. This graph is literally what momentum looks like. It's tracking the momentum swings from that Wimbledon final. Think of it like a tug of war. When the wave goes up, Djokovic has the edge. When it dips down, Alcaraz is wrestling back control. You can actually see the entire psychological battle of the match play out right here. Alcaraz didn't just win the last point. He won this invisible war for momentum. So what's actually causing those big swings? Well, the data is pretty clear. These momentum shifts are directly tied to things like psychological toughness and key skills, especially serving. It proves that it's not just about hitting a good shot. It's about being mentally tough enough to do it when it really counts. And here it is, the main takeaway from the whole study. The researchers concluded that to master momentum, coaches and players have to focus on mental toughness and elite serving and returning skills. Does that sound like anyone we know? I mean, that is a perfect description of the Carlos Alcaraz playbook. So let's put all the pieces together. We've looked at the big moment, the custom-built tools, and the unbeatable mindset. This is what it all boils down to: the Alcaraz formula. And the formula is actually pretty simple. You start with a base of just pure, once-in-a-generation talent. Then you add a perfectly optimized toolkit, customized down to the last gram for maximum impact. And finally, you top it all off with the ultimate weapon, the mental strength to grab control of a match's momentum and never let go. Which, of course, leaves us with one last huge question. He has the talent, he has the tools, and he clearly has the mental game. He's already a historic champion. So, with this winning formula, are we just watching the very start of a dynasty? Is the Alcaraz era just beginning?